Hi, my name is Brian Trummer. I'm a DevOps consultant with the Release Team, and in today's video, we're going to go over what makes a Jira project work items. So we're going to go over work items, formerly known as issues, and work types, formerly known as issue types in Jira, and how those contribute to making a Jira project. In this series, I'm going to break down several areas that turn into making a Jira project a whole project. This is a good video to watch if you're new to Jira, if you're a new Jira admin, or maybe you just need a refresher on all the components that make a Jira project whole. So in today's video, like I said, we're going to cover work items, formerly known as issues, and work types, formerly known as issue types. So let's go ahead and let's look at our screen here. So currently we're just on our main Jira For You page. Let's go ahead and let's get into a project. We're going to select our mobile dev project on the ellipses. We're going to go into the project settings. Now, if you're not a project admin or a Jira admin, this is not a screen that you're going to see uh, due to permissions, but this is the easiest way to kind of show you how a whole project looks. And we'll use this throughout the entire series to cover each of these components, these areas. So the view I like to look at here is summary. So you'll see here we have a lot of things that we're looking at on our main screen. We've got our issue types, priorities, workflows, screens, fields, permissions, components, versions. Those are all things that are going to get covered in this series, but we're going to start with the top item here. Now it does say issue types. At the time of recording, Atlassian is still working on moving everything over to the new verbiage, such as work items and work types. So I will say work types quite a bit throughout this video. You'll see the word issue types. Just know that those changes are in the works. So what is a work type? What is a work item? A work item is, your ticket, your item that you're currently working on. What is a work type? That breaks down what type of work is being done here. So you'll see in our mobile dev project, we have a few work types in here. We've got a bug, epic, initiative, risk, story, subtask, and task. And you'll see here the subtask is marked with a label known as subtask. So just that you're aware that you can also have work type items also be subtasks that aren't just called subtask, but they will have that label on here that say subtask. Having various work types can really help in your project with variability, customization, a bug, an epic, an initiative, risk. The list can continue to go on and on. All of these can have different components of the project. So these work types really drive the rest of your project. A bug can have, different workflows, different screens, different fields than an epic or a risk or a story or a task. So if you have multiple work types in your project, you're then able to provide information that is specific for each one of those work items. So how does a work type really work? I guess, is kind of a better question. So let's take a look here. We're going to look at this ticket that we currently have here. And see, I said a ticket work item that we currently have here. So we have here in our mobile dev a work item, and you'll see here we've got an indicator that this is a subtask. So our screen for the subtask is going to be different than our screen than if we were to look at the parent ticket, which is a story, which when you highlight it, you're going to see exactly what it is. So let's click on that. And you'll see here, we're getting different information than what we were seeing when we were looking at the subtask work item. And even one level above, when we look at the epic, there's going to be different information as well. And all this is driven by those work types. So the epic work type is going to have a different screen than the story work type. And then the story is going to have a different screen than the subtask work type. We see that even further here when we're looking at a bug work type. We'll see here in this bug that it does have different information on here, or it possibly could. You're always going to have a summary and a description as part of your screen. No matter the work type, it's still going to be in there. So how does a work type drive everything? How does a work type really start the building blocks of a project? So let's look here. We're going to look at our scheme for work types here for this project. And you'll see here when we look at this scheme, and what is a scheme? A scheme, kind of think of it as your main configuration of how you're going to differentiate items or even make them similar. So we'll see here as we look at the story work type that the workflow is a specific workflow, this field configuration, and this screen configuration. Now this one's going to show a lot of the same, but these could be different. Each one of these could be different, and that's how work items really take the shape of your project and how it's going to look. It allows you, like I said before, to really differentiate information that's needed between a story, bug, epic, initiative, risk, task, subtask. The list goes on for that. So think of them as your building blocks. Now, we've seen a few work types here. We've got story. We've talked about these before. Does this look any different when we're looking at, let's say, a JSM project, a Jira Service Management project? We're over here now in our human resources project, and we're in the summary view once again. And let's see here what these work types look like. So we do have different work types in here. There's not a lot of similarity with the other one. Now that's because this is a service project, a Jira Service Management project. So some of the information you're going to get is a little bit different than what you get from a mobile dev. You know, you could still have bugs, you could still have a lot of those work types, but it really depends on what that service desk is doing and what work types you're going to have in there. So we'll see in this one we have, service requests with approvals, change request, email request, employee offboarding, onboarding, questions for HR, subtask is still here, and then we have a task. So everything's a little bit different, but it's customized towards the human resources service project. Now let's take a look here. Everything's still going to be the same, regardless if it's a Jira project, a Jira Service Management project, your work types are still going to be those building blocks. So let's take a look here at the scheme that we currently have set for this project. This one's going to show some differences. So our work type here, the service request with approvals, is actually using a different workflow than the other ones. It's using this specific workflow that has approvals in it. The screen and the field configuration looks to be the same for right now for some of these projects. And then we'll get down here a little bit further. We'll see that change request and emailed request, those are both using the exact same workflow. However, when we get into employee offboarding and employee onboarding, those are both using different workflows. So using those other work types allows you to change the workflow. So you're not having to have one workflow fit all work types. We'll see here that questions for HR is using one that some of the others are using, and then task and subtask are using a different workflow. All of our field configurations are going to look pretty similar here, but we do have some differences in our screen. So the information that we're getting on our work items. So when we're reviewing those work items, each one of these are going to have a little bit of different information based on the work type. So we have just a generic screen here, and you'll see screen scheme. Once again, think of that as your base configuration for how you have your screens react to not only issue types or work types, but also what is being done, create, edit, and viewing. But we'll get further into that when we talk about screens in a later video. We also have a different screen setup for change requests, which makes sense. You're going to need different information for a change request than you would employee offboarding. And we'll see here, mention employee offboarding. We do have different screens for both offboarding and onboarding. And then we also have a different screen over here for the HR questions. And then we're using just the same workflows for these two here. So you'll see how the work items really mold your project in Jira. They're the ones that are driving basically how your work item will react. Could you have one work item in a project? Certainly. It all depends on what you're currently doing. We've looked at two projects today that are very different from each other. One is an HR service desk, so intaking requests from most likely internal customers versus looking at a project that is for internal development. And you'll see here the work types are different, but they're all doing the same thing. They're making it so you're getting the information you need for the work items that you're working on, so that way you're not scrolling through one screen that has information for 20 different types of work that is being done. What you'll see here is now we have a list of all of the work items within our entire instance of Jira. And from here you can see if they're related to certain schemes, things along those lines. A little description, and you can continue to go through the list. Now for admins, if you do need to add a new work type, you are able to do so. One piece of advice though is to make sure that you don't already have a work type that can serve the same purpose. Now with these work types, just because you have a work type in project A doesn't mean that it has to use the same workflows, screens in project B. That's the wonderful thing about it, is that a work type in each project can have various different screens, workflows, fields from project to project. It doesn't have to match. So if you are an admin, can find a work type that's kind of already works towards what the request is, I highly suggest using that. So that way you're not going through a list of 40 to 50 work types. And make sure you add it to that project's work type scheme. If the work type is not in the scheme, it is unfortunately not able to be used in the project. So you can create a work type by selecting the add issue type here, and this is where you can go through, give it a name, give it a brief description, and then you can say whether it's a standard issue type, so it is seen at a level 0, so it is a parent ticket kind of, or a subtask issue type, which is going to be those ones that can attach to an already higher ticket. So how do you add a work type to an existing work type scheme so you can add it to the project? That's pretty simple. We're already here in our summary screen for the project. And to add a work item to the scheme for the work type scheme, we're going to select it right here. That's going to take us to a screen that we just saw recently. Over here, we're going to select actions, and from there we can hit edit issue types. And once it opens, it's going to give us a nice little area here where we can make some modifications to the scheme. Now, keep in mind, if this scheme is being used across multiple projects, any changes you make in this screen will make that change for other projects. And you can see if a scheme is being used by multiple projects by looking here where it says shared by. You can click on it. If it's one project, it's going to show that one project. If it's multiple, it will show the number, and when you select it, it will show you how many projects and the projects that are also using it. So keep in mind, if you need to make a change just for one project, however it's being shared with multiple projects, the scheme is for the work type, you may want to think about copying that work type scheme and then just having it be solo for that project, or if the other projects could use that other work type that you're going to add to it. So from here, you can update the name, description. You can also select what the default issue or work type would be when someone creates a ticket. Now, this is really for when you're creating a ticket within Jira, not really within the service desk within JSM, just because that's already going through the portal. You'll see here on this left-hand side, we have all the current work types that are being used for the current scheme, and on the right-hand side, all the available work types. So we're going to go ahead and move one over, and it's really simple. It's just the same as dragging and dropping. So we're going to grab support and bring it over there. You can then come down, select save, and it's going to update and bring you back to this screen, and now you'll see that we have support here. Now, we won't talk about how you're changing the workflow, the field configuration, or the screen until we get into the videos covering those areas. But that's how you add a work type to an existing work type scheme. You can also do the same thing to remove it. We go into that exact same screen, drag and drop, and then we would hit save. Also, from within this screen within the project, you are able to go ahead and make an update to the scheme if you wanted to. You could use a completely different scheme. And that's done by doing the use a different scheme button here. And you can go through the list and select one that you wanted to change it to. And when you're making that change, it will show you down here what the work types are for that specific scheme. You can also, if you're not sure exactly which project is using a specific scheme, but you know it's the same scheme that you want to share from project A to project B, you can select the project, or you can create a brand new one. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to make an update to the scheme or change the scheme. I want it to be the exact same one. Another way to get to that screen that shows the work type scheme is you can go over here on your left hand side, select issues, and then you can also select types. And that's going to show you the work types that we have here. So today we've gone over work items and work types and how they make up a Jira project. Like I said, they are kind of the driving force between your work items within your Jira project. They drive what is the workflow, the field configuration, and the screen, the data that you're going to see on those work items. Thank you for joining today's video where we went over what makes up a Jira project work items. I hope this was informative. I hope you join us for the rest of the videos in this series.